Aha. So, well, hello. Thanks for joining. If you're here to my live stream, we're going to do some talking about WordPress block themes and theme.json and how we will go ahead and add some custom typography and custom font options to our site. So we've been working our way through some of the aspects of a block theme. Feel free to check out videos over on YouTube that I've put into a more durable location, so that if you want to go back and see anything else that I've talked about, and then I'll be publishing everything out to a GitHub repository, which I'll put into the description in just a second. So, all right, or at least I'll put it in after the stream is over. All right, so I am going to switch to my screen share. As always, if you have questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat. I will do my best to address things as they come up or when it seems appropriate within what I'm doing here. So the file that I have open right now is in VS Code. It is the 2023 theme, which is a default theme shipped with WordPress at this point. And I am in the theme.json file for that theme. So you see we have our schema, the version, there's custom templates, which is collapsed, and then we get into settings. And within settings, we have all of these options. And the one that we're focused on today is going to be within typography. And more specifically, we're going to look at font families. So this is something that's been building, like the features being developed over time. Right now, it's just what you see here. It's the option to add these fonts via your theme.json file. So we have within typography a section called font families. And within font families, we have an array. That square bracket indicates an array. And then we have an object of the font face. So if I collapse this down, and we can see all of the different font faces that are included in this theme. One thing to notice here is that we have this font here that doesn't have a font face associated with it. And the reason is this is actually a system stack of fonts that doesn't require a font face to be created. The font face is actually going to be pulling in a file and some parameters around how that file should be used. So I'm going to use this as an example to build it out in my file when we get to that. But first, I was thinking we might take a look at a little bit of a shortcut if you don't want to have to go through writing this all out this way. And I haven't tried this yet, but there's a feature in the Create Block Theme plugin that will potentially make this a little easier. So let's go ahead and skip right over to our site. Let's see. So I'm in tools. No, appearance. Looks like I do not have this. I might be in the wrong site. One moment, please. All right. Let's see. I have a site just for the live stream. Here we are. That's better. Okay. So in appearance, then we have the Create Block Theme option, but then also the same plugin adds this manage theme fonts. So let's go in and see what we can find. The first thing that I see is a warning. That's unfortunate. All right. I will probably dig into that a little bit when I'm offline and potentially create an issue if I can find out what it is that's causing that. So it definitely looks like it's within the plugin. Maybe, oh, there's an update. That might help. Okay, so let's see if that has gone away now. Appearance, manage font themes. It did not. Okay, well, let's see if it still works. So we have two options. One is to add a local font and one is to add a Google font. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Google font. So it gives me this screen where it's going to give me a drop down of a whole bunch of different fonts. And I can go and choose one, and then it's going to show me a preview. That's cool. And this is the first time I'm seeing this, so I'm kind of live narrating as I go along. Looks like you can choose what you want the preview to look like, whether you want it to be a paragraph or a sentence or a heading. You can choose the text. So if I wanted, let's say I was going to add something that I was going to use as my site title, it might look something like this. And I can see what that would look like in various styles of this particular font. And then if I wanted to try a different one, I bet it would just update that. So, and then I can choose the preview font size. Cool. So then it looks like there are these check boxes. Let's say I wanted to choose this Aria one, and I can say add Google Fonts to your theme. Let's see what happens. It gave me a message, but let's see if it actually did register it. All right, so I'm going to go into the site editor, and let's go ahead and try to edit some kind of content. So I have typography, font family, font, and oh, look there's Aria right there. And so I can apply that to be the font for the post content in this case. That's pretty cool. Probably more likely I would use this kind of a font for maybe like this. So to access the font, I go to typography, use the 3 dots, and go to font family. It'll add that in, I think. Maybe. All right, I got to get the right block selected. Lots of nesting going on here. Site logo, site title. That's the one I want. And let me try this again. Font family. You can go from font to Aria. There we go. Neat. So that's one way to do this. Now I am curious to see if what has actually happened beneath the surface here, because it does say that it's adding it to my theme, but I don't know if it added files to my theme or if it's just doing something else. So let's go ahead and take a look back at our code. So I'm going to go to the theme.json file for my Daisy on WordPress theme. And I've got a few things going on in here. You can kind of see the green is where something has changed. And then if it has an M next to it, it means it's been modified. So like this assets folder is new. And so the plugin created the assets folder and within that a fonts folder. And then it downloaded locally those 2 font files from Google. So this is not a, it's not being pulled from Google anymore. It's local to this site, which is a local installation on my computer. So I'm the only one accessing it. But if this were out on my web server, then anyone that was accessing the website would basically download that file along with the rest of the page so that the font can display. And then, so that's the 2 files that are supporting this. And then within the theme.json, we have, let's see, here we are. So I added the font family section and then all of the information necessary to support this font on the site so that it shows up in that drop down as a preset. So super easy. This all can be done manually. I could now maybe go out and find a different font. So let's go and do that. let's see. I like monospace fonts. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here. And there was one I was looking at. I don't know. It doesn't really matter which one I pick, but how about something? Oh, this one's kind of interesting. Major Mono. So I am on Google Fonts. I just found a font that I liked. I can download the family here, and it gives me a zip file. And let me see if I can get that so we can see what's in the folder here. It just gave me the TTF file. So I can actually pull this in into that fonts folder here. So we'll go copy. And before I do this completely manually, I want to try something else. Let's go back to our site. I'm changing my mind as I go along, as I often do. And I'm going to go back to manage font themes. I'm going to say add local font. Let's see what happens. Aha! So this says I can upload my TTF file. So if I go to my downloads that I just had open, and then I go into Major Mono Display, and then I open that file, it's going to give me the definition for the font pre-populated based on the file, and then I can upload it to my font. And now it says that that font has been added to my theme. So, all right. So these are super great shortcuts. Even if you don't use Create Block Theme for anything else, and if you want to add custom fonts to your theme.json and to get those files, this is way easier than doing it manually. However, for the sake of being thorough and just to add in the element of development, let's go ahead and try one. So let's find a nice, basically impossible to read handwriting font. These are the kinds of fonts that you probably should never use on your site because they are not very accessible, but they're pretty. All right. Let's try this one. Nothing you could do. All right, I'm downloading that font. So there's a question, where did I go to add that? So to add the file, I'll go back through that process one more time. So I'm in my WordPress site. I have the Create Block Theme plugin. It's under Appearance and then Manage Font Themes. And then I have the option to either add a Google font or add a local font. So if it's a font that you've downloaded from wherever on the internet, maybe, I don't know, Google Fonts is just where I am right now, but it might not be you would probably use the add Google font if you're going to add a Google font. But if you were using some other thing like from Adobe or from any other font source, you might just have the files that have been provided to you, and they might be licensed. And I don't know what the stipulations are on using licensed themes, if you need to also store the license file on the server or not. Your mileage may vary. I would definitely refer to the licensing requirements for any font that you're going to use to make sure that you're using it appropriately. All right. So I've downloaded the zip file. I'm going to go ahead and unpack it. So I do have it open over in my Finder. And then I am going to just drag this TTF right in to this folder here. And it's not going to display it for me, but it is there. Okay. And then in theme.json, I need to go and add in another font. So I'm going to close this. So I closed a pair of brackets just so I can see that I'm putting it in the right place. And then I can add this in. And then from here, I know that I need to add the font family. And it's going to be called, let's see, Nothing You Could Do, I think is what we're going to call it. Okay. And then I need to add the font style. You know what? Slug. First I have to add the font family, and then I'm going to add the font face. So I was getting ahead of myself there. All right. So the slug just needs to be an ID that can be used for things like classes and just identifying what this is at the system level. So I'm going to say nothing you would do with dashes or hyphens, just to kind of match the naming convention that was done up in that one that the plugin added. And then now we are going to add our font face. Okay. And so when the schema added these square brackets automatically for me, that means I'm going to be adding an array. In this case, I'm probably only going to be adding one thing to this array. Let me just go back and verify that. I have a regular 400. That's the only thing that seems to be here. If it were a font that had more going on, sometimes these kinds of fonts that are very stylized might not have all of the options with it. So I think that we're just going to stick to that regular 400. That's the only one that's here. So, all right. So that means that what we need to do is kind of replicate this part, the font face. And we're going to just kind of use the information that we have as a sample and then go from there. So I know that I need to have my curly brackets. And then I need to add a font family, which is going to be the font family that we already had. Nothing you could do. And then a font style is going to be normal. And the font weight, I think, was 400. And then the last thing that we need to do here is add the source. Oops, RC, if I can type. And then this again is going to be an array because it's possible that you could be pulling in more than one file. Like you could create a fallback of different types of files. We just have the one, so we're just going to include that. Okay, so it's going to be file dot assets fonts major, nope, nothing you would do regular .ttf. Okay, if that is right, I'm going to close this sidebar so I can see the whole thing. Nothing you could do dash regular. Yep, that looks good. All right, so let's see if that worked. If I did my job right, I have basically just registered this font family and the face so that I have access to it from within my site. And just so you all know, this might be a little shorter of a stream today because I've this is all I have to share with you. So we can go into a question and answer time after this, and that's fine. So let's see what we've got here. Let's see if I can change my my site title to be that handwriting font that I just added. So here it is, nothing you could do. And there it is. Look at that. So now we've added a total of 3 different fonts to this theme, 3 different ways. Maybe what we could do now is just take a look at the system font that was included in that 2023 theme, because I think a system font is a really good thing to implement. So let's dig into that. All right, I'm going to pin this tab so it doesn't close on me when I go back to the other theme.json file. Make sure I get the right one here. Open this. There we go. Okay. So just like we saw before, these are all fonts that have local files. If we were to go into the assets folder of this theme, we would see that we have more directories or folders with each of these files that are not needed to support that font. They're not all the same. Like, you have a couple of different variations on some of these themes depending on what's available. This one's a TTF. I don't know how you pronounce this, but WOFF2 is another font file format. And it does look like the licenses are included here. So something to note. Where was I? I lost it. Okay. So let's look at the things that are not pulling in from a file, or at least from a file that's stored on the website. Mainly, it looks like it's just this one. So the idea behind the system font is to have something that can be used by a font that would be installed regardless of what operating system you're using. So the stack will go through the list and it'll use the first one it finds in that list. So we've got all of these different fonts, and they all are based on something default in a operating system. And some of these are legacy. So we have Apple System here. We have Blink Mac System font. Some of these could be from years ago. I'm not really sure. Here we have one where the font name has a space in it. So it's actually been escaped so that it stays as a unit. So because it needs the quotes around it. And the same thing for Helvetica New. We have Roboto, Oxygen Sans, Ubuntu, Cantarell. As you can see, there's quite a few of them. And then at the end of the font, and this is pretty much true for most font stacks, you're going to fall back to the most basic thing. And that's either going to be sans serif, serif, or mono. Those are the three basic types of fonts that you will likely encounter. All right, so I see a question, so let's go ahead and throw that up. How about variable fonts? Will WordPress understand those by default, or do different weight, etc. need to be declared? They do need to be declared. So let's look at some of the other examples in here. I think that we've got a couple that we can use. Here's a good one. So we have this font face for IBM Plex Mono, and we have more than one font weight, and they're just being registered separately and from whatever file is appropriate for that weight. So that's how it's going to do. What I don't know, so if you remembered when we imported the Google font from Google, it did all that for us. I had two font options, the two files were pulled in, and it registered both of them for me with everything already pre-selected. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen if I go and try to find one that has a lot of options. We could try it. Let's experiment. Let's try show variable fonts. Okay, it is not loading. Why is that? There it is. Okay. So what do we have? We have regular 400, light 300, medium, semi-bold, bold, extra bold, and black. So let's go ahead and download the whole family. Let's see what we've got. Close that one. All right, so it gave me a README. It gave me the variable font weight file, and then a whole bunch of static files. And then there's the license. So let's go ahead and try using the plugin to add this one. Okay, gotta get out of the site editor. Appearance, manage theme fonts. So I'm noticing that now that I have fonts installed on my site, those warnings that were there before have gone away. So I wonder if the warnings are there when you don't have any fonts. That is possible. All right, we're gonna add a Google font. We're gonna go find Marienda. And look at that, all those variations or variants, I can add them all. And this is kind of what we did before, where we had all the variations or variants, depending on which word you want to use. And I can add them all to my theme. And there they are. So it brought me right back to the screen to add another one. And I can go back to manage font themes. And now we see that whole list of options. Now this only has normal. It doesn't have any italics. It doesn't. There's a lot it doesn't have. So while it does have variants or variables, it doesn't have as many as a lot of fonts might. So, but that's what it's going to look like in the interface when you use the plugin. Interesting. So the one that I typed manually was this one here, nothing you could do. And you can see that even though I added it manually, the plugin is still seeing it. So you can kind of mix and match. All right, here's a question. Let's see what we've got. I may not have an answer to this. I have a style question. I've noticed even when using clamp, headings on mobile tend to be breaking the words. So this is a little outside of my CSS knowledge at this point. I'm a little rusty, but I'm pretty sure that there are some CSS rules that you can use to avoid word breaks. Is it the word itself is breaking? So this is what I would expect, is that you would use word break, and it might have to be custom CSS and not theme.json. So I don't know that we have a word break option in theme.json. So, but that's a really good point. It might be that that's something that should be explored. So I can make a note of that for to create an issue for that. Now, it's probably fair to say that the purpose of theme.json is not to replicate the entire CSS library of styles. So there may always be something, especially the more edge case, the less likely it's going to end up being something that you can control within global styles or at the block level. All right. So that feels pretty good. It really isn't that hard at this point to add a custom font. If you wanted to do it without a theme.json file, the process would be a little bit more. You would have to enqueue the files in a theme.json, sorry, not a theme.json, in a functions.php file. Let's see what the internet has here. Preferably from the actual docs. So if you are interested, I'm tangent time. If you're interested in having fonts that are not locally stored, I don't know if that's built into the API for fonts. How this is still a feature that's being developed. Last I heard, which was some time ago, it was definitely not the best way to go. Largely for GDRP, I don't know, the letters, the GDPR, I think that's it. Yeah, GDPR. If the files are being hosted by some place where you can't control what data is being collected on your visitors, then it will not likely meet GDPR requirements. So that is one of the reasons that it's recommended, at least from a protect yourself sort of standpoint, to store your font files locally so that you are not having any additional cookies, tracking cookies added to your site that you have not already gotten express permission for. Have I missed anything with fonts? This is a very short stream today. So I'll wait a couple more minutes if you have any other questions. Next week, my plan is to talk about, to go back to templates and template parts and to start like really building out the templates that I would consider to be necessary for a starter theme. So it'll be things like a singular template, either page or post, maybe both, archive. Let's see, we might use like something to go to the front page. Although that I probably would leave for the specific themes rather than building it into a starter theme, but maybe a 404 template, and I'll have a list ready to go for next week of all of the ones that I think we should include. So fluid font sizes, that would be an awfully good thing to, sorry, I just picked this up from the chat. This would be a good thing to explore a little bit. And I think I probably will in a future stream when I've had some time to prepare. Another topic that's pretty big is layouts and similar things like block gap and that sort of thing. Some of these, they're complicated. There's a lot going on in these, but the main idea behind fluent font sizes is that as your site becomes responsive, bigger or smaller, then what's going to happen is your text is going to have upper and lower limits for size, and it's going to adjust. So if you wanted the size to actually get bigger on a smaller screen or something, you can actually do that with fluidity. So I would love to mark this for dedicating a whole stream just to fluid font sizes. So watch for that at some point. All right, well, I think I am going to go ahead and close it down for today. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll get the GitHub repo posted into the description, and I'll also be posting a video of this up to YouTube in the next couple of days. So thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.